good afternoon, good morning, depending on from where you have connected. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar with the title "Why Are We Still Clicking?" Right. So let me introduce myself. My name is Shahnawaz Sheikh. I am responsible for global sales and alliances at Amiseq. And also let me introduce the esteemed speakers, Dr. Ashok Chopra, Registrar, Member University Research Committee and Program Chair at Amity University. Then we have Anna Ferreira, Privacy and Cybersecurity Researcher. And then we have Murat Guvenc, Managing Director at BeamSec. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time off to be on this webinar this evening for the next 45 minutes. So, knowing today's title, why are we still clicking? Let us understand the psychology, behind it, right? As we understand that there is a need for continuous training, and just one-time training does not serve the purpose, right? Let me start with this analogy. Let us say I want to commute from point A to point B, and that distance is about 15 kilometers. And I ask for the direction with Google Maps or Waze. And what if Google Maps or Waze gives me the complete direction at one go, right? If I have a great memory, I would still be able to recall 80 to 90% of that direction. But in most cases, it is difficult, right? So if the Google tells us that, okay, after 1 kilometer, take the third exit, after 2 kilometers, take the second exit, it becomes easier for us to navigate. In the similar manner, with respect to cybersecurity and knowing that the cyber threats are evolving continuously, and the cybersecurity threat landscape is so dynamic, it's really important for us to continuously learn, improve the best practices, and then apply that from time to time. So there is this forgetting curve introduced by a German scientist by name Hermann Ebbinghaus. So Ebbinghaus, in the year 1885, wherein this forgetting curve still applies well in today's time as well. So what he did was he collected his data, and then he did a research that with one-time learning, what will be the retaining capacity in the memory and how long a human can retain that information. So he did that research, and then he came out with his findings that with the one-time learning, human can lose at least 70% of that information within 24 hours, right? And also he understood that with the repeated learning, that could be incremental or same information repeated continuously, that helps minimize that memory decay, and that helps in improving the behavior, right? So as you could see in the graph, with repeated learning, the Ebbinghaus determined that the memory retainment or knowledge retainment ratio is higher, and the longevity, right? The time that you can save that information in your memory can stretch for longer time, longer duration. So basically, the conclusion of his research was spaced repetition or continuous learning helps us improve the memory retention, and also helps in the behavior adoption, or improving the habits of human behavior. So, to continue further and give you more insight on the behavior and the habits, I'd like to invite Dr. Ashok Chopra to take over from here.
Uh, Good evening, good morning. I would rather say hello to everybody because that is easy way to address when the audience is large and they are spread all over the world. So my name is Ashok, and in terms of continuing from what my colleague said, there is a very good phenomena we all have, and that is we have a habit loop. And in that loop, what are we trying to do? Let me finish my work. I got a mail. I need to open it. And when I open it, I need to finish and get rid of it. Sorry to use this word, and get on to the next job because I have too much of pressure. And especially when I work for university, I find that I have much more pressure than probably many of us because Here you are catering to large number of the audience and students who are going to be your audience, who are going to be your customers, and you need to serve them. And in that process, you most of the time click onto the links which you are not supposed to click, and that gets you into a big problem. So this behavior of finishing my job early, clicking onto it, getting rid of it, going to the next task, what makes sometime pay a heavy penalty for all of us, because we did not realize what I am opening, but I saw a link and I clicked it. And after that, consequences are so dire that we forget. And in the process, we feel that we have lost a lot. I think this behavior needs to be stopped, and especially the young generation who are probably more curious, who are probably more tempting in terms of let me grab it, let me get it. That gets us all into a big problem as far as clicking onto the wrong links are concerned, and gets us into a big trouble. Moving further, uh, can I get to the next slide? If because I, yeah, thank you. So, why do you think it won't happen to you? Most of us think I'm very smart, I'm very intelligent. What is so great about it? I have done so much. For example, I have been working since 90, probably 1804. So I feel I have seen the world. I have seen a lot of kind of people, and I have gone through a lot of stages in my life. So what will happen to me? Nothing will happen to me. Look at the experience I carry with me. I think all these problems which we carry along with us, a big bag which we are holding on our back, that I have experience, I know everything, gets us into a big problem. And then we find that something has been lost, something has not gone in my favor, and I have probably in the process have lost a lot. I have seen a lot of people repenting later on that I clicked the wrong link and I got into a trouble. So my request always would be to all the audience, to the people who are attending, that be cautious on what you are clicking. Don't be so curious. Don't be so promptive that, oh, I must click, get rid of it, and then I can go and do my other jobs. Patience is the key. Going further, we have this very big habit. Let me finish my work very fast so that I can conserve my energy for other work. I think that gets us into a wrong problem sometime. And then sometime we feel, as I said, what will happen to me? I'm so smart. Why should something happen like this to me only? I am doing every day. I'm a vice president of the university. I am a dean of the university. I have been teaching IT for such a long time. So why should I worry? I think these experience based assumptions, what we have within ourselves, lands us into a problem, and these kind of a problem gets us into a big disaster sometime. And I have seen a lot of people who are under digital arrest, and they knowingly unknowingly follow everything and give everything of their life. So be careful on these short term reward focuses. I will finish my work, I will, this overconfidence sometimes kills us, and we find that it is not a good habit. As Mr. Shahnawaz said, majority of us forget what we have even eaten in the morning. So forget about that, oh, I had a bad experience, so let me be careful. People still get into the same problem, same clicking it, and getting into a big problem. So my sincere request would be, please do not click unless you know the subject matter, unless you know that it is coming from a right source. Otherwise, we all can land into a big problem. If I go to the next slide, probably. So, uh, I would give a right example of iceberg. Sometimes we find when we see an iceberg, we see the visible part and we forget the invisible part. So, visible part is sometimes so small that we feel, oh, what is so great about it? I can manage it. And we find that the deeper part is what creating a problem for me. I never realized I can be into such a big problem. I hear the news, I read the news, I see the TV, and I find how people are so distressed that they succumb into the pressure of their own theoretical knowledge and get themselves into a big trouble, and they find that they have gone into the wrong hands. So, my sincere request would be remove this bias from your mind that I am smart, I can handle anything. I am experienced, I can handle anything. I am such and such in my university, I can handle it. Or such a big boss in my organization, I can handle it. These biases lends us into a big problem. So come out of this psychological problem of I can do it and focus on what is the reality in life. Be cautious, be careful, and get into a right click. Otherwise, the wrong click can get us into a wrong mode. If I can go to the next slide, please. Another very reflective learning is that, as I said, we have a very short memory. We even forget that what happened to me last time, or what did I eat last dinner or last meal. We don't even remember. And even after making the mistake, psychologically we feel we are so strong that we again click it, we again land into a problem, and in the process we find that my losses have become much bigger than probably what I can do. I remember one instance where I was prompted to click a particular link, and I said, no, I can't do that because this link is looking fishy to me. It might say that, oh, click it, nothing will happen. But it is so fishy that I have to think about the consequences. And this thinking about consequences will give you a long lasting memory reflection that no, I don't have to click such links. You need to take care of your emotional silence or emotional biases which you have made within yourself, that nothing can happen to me. So protect yourself, be practical in life rather than being theoretical and believing that nothing will happen to me because I'm so smart. If I can go to the next slide. Friends, behavior change happens in stages. When we say applying the trans theoretical mode to the cybersecurity, what I am trying to tell you is that cybersecurity is not a step that I learned today and it has gone into my mind forever. The people who are creating these security threats to you, they are smarter than us. They know what you are thinking, and based upon your thinking, they are devising new ways of catching you, inviting you to click such kind of a link and get into a bigger trouble. And we feel, oh my God, I wish I would have not done it. But by the time you find your bank balance is gone, your account is empty, you already have made a big loss in your personal life. It could be anything. Most of the time, it is the physical, which is your money, your assets, what you are having. I recently got two of the links which were on the DocuSign, and I know I have used my DocuSign only for signing my rental agreement. I would not open any of the DocuSigns. And another thing, there are certain banks where I have deposits. I would never have online banking because it is a joint account, me and my wife, because children live somewhere else. So, if one makes a mistake, other will not be able to protect if it is a single account. So try to make account in such a manner that it is operated jointly, so that the chances of such mistakes become remote and you are able to save yourself. At my age, I am right now 63, and so is my wife, another 3 years younger to me. Imagine how difficult it is in such a world to safeguard yourself. So make sure that you don't come into the trans theoretical model, which gets you into various stages. Be careful what you're doing. Otherwise, one can have a real big challenge in the life. If I may have the next slide, please. Coming to cyber threat landscape in higher education. Incidents, immediate impacts, key lessons, these are key when it comes to cyber threats landscape in higher education. I come from the higher education sector and I know how our students, unless they are taught in a proper manner, get themselves into a big trouble. And that big trouble creates a real problem for them, where not only they have lost their physical assets, even their emotional balance also they have lost it, because they thought, how can it happen to me? How can somebody make me a fool? Somebody make me get into the making a loss or making losing my everything. I think it is important for all of us to take care of such ignorance within ourselves, bring it to the reality and say, no, I'm not an ignorant. I would learn. And if I require the opinion of my expert, I would do the same and get into a right mode. I hand over mic to my next speaker who would get it from here to the next level, please. Thank you very much for patiently listening me.
Thank you, Dr. Ashok. Thank you for the insight, and it is so relevant with respect to our day-to-day activities on what we click and how we kind of build that cyber hygiene, in terms of identifying the possible risk before we click on anything, right? So, as we understand that the universities are not immune to cyber threats. On the contrary, they are targeted more these days, right? So and the bad actors target universities not just for the financial information or stealing the personal information. What is more valuable for them is also to lay their hands onto a research data, research information, which is so valuable from a university's perspective, right? So let me just bring up few real time breach incidents that have happened in the recent past. So Columbia University in the US, they had a breach just a couple of months ago where 2.5 million records were stolen from the university, and this included the staff's information and the student information, and also the registration of the students from past few decades as well, right? They say that it was a politically motivated attack, but yeah, look at the impact that the university had, right? uh, because there was a breach on one area of university's network, but it also impacted the studies, right? The classes were disrupted. Students were not able to upload their projects or access anything online, right? The whole learning experience came to an halt until all that was fixed, right? So the key lesson learned from that particular breach is, even though you are an prestigious university, elite university with a lot of budgets in place, right? If there is a threat, if there is a operational disruption, the first thing that comes to halt or would have an impact in a university is learning, right? Another real-time example was with University of West of Scotland, which happened a couple of years ago. This seems to be more of a targeted attack where a group called Ricida ransomware gang, which did some background study about what they want to do, stole about 1 million records, right? And then they demanded a ransom of £450,000, equivalent to about 20 bitcoins at that point in time, right? So here, the impact that the university had, obviously, the confidential information was stolen, which also resulted into the reputation damage, right? And the university says that they also had an impact with respect to new registrations, new enrollments, which led to about 14 million pound deficit for them, right? But the bigger concern there was, the information that was put on the dark web. Imagine all that confidential information changing hands from one cyber criminal to another cyber criminal, which could be, very risky, right? So again, the lessons learned here is, obviously, ransomware, equals to the data loss for sure. But on the other hand, what other impact, what other trouble it brings to the university. It could be the reputation and the loss of revenue and things like that. So this phishing attacks continues to haunt the universities. We see that from statistics, the mass phishing emails, like the whaling, the percentage of that is declining, which is a good sign. But what is on the rise is the targeted phishing, right? The business email compromise or the spear phishing type of threats, where they specifically target the high individuals in the organization. It could be C level executives. It could be an specific department within the university, right? And then those spear phishing or BEC type of phishing threats, targets. If they target any weak link, then that exposes the possible network to the bad actor, right? And also there are various types of other phishing threats as well. Clone phishing, right? So here what happens is, if there is a um, legit sender who is sending an email to a recipient, and recipient knows who the sender is, and if this threat actor intercepts that email, a legit email, and then induces a malicious URL or an attachment into it, for the recipient, they'll see that, okay, this mail I usually get from my regular sender, and this must be a genuine mail. And the user, without validating that further, goes on to click on that malicious link, right, which could be harmful, right? There are also phishing type of threats which happens in larger universities because of the volume of people studying or employed. What if there is somebody is calling a student and saying, hey, I'm calling from dean's office and you're supposed to submit this project urgently, or you're supposed to pay your fees immediately, right? So whenever there is a sense of urgency, please stop back, validate, right? Make calls, verify before you respond to it. You could see some examples of the phishing um, emails that get communicated, and we have seen from so many examples that we see published in the newses, uh, like O365. There could be a fake O365, and if a user does not have the understanding, will eventually end up supplying the credentials, and that credentials would be copied or captured by a threat actor. Similarly, the university websites can be cloned, right? And you connect to the website for some purpose, and then you see some link that flashes up, and you click on that link, and then it redirects to something else. And eventually this threat threat actors, or this bad actors, want to lure you to the malware infested websites, from where they can download the malwares onto your devices and then do their job, right? So, phishing definitely continues to be a bigger threat for universities, and as per the statistics, we see that in the UK, 100% of the universities had a phishing threat or a phishing attack in the last 12 months. As per the UK Cybersecurity Breach Survey. Similarly, in North America, the percentage could be lower compared to UK, but still 81% of the on-prem infrastructure had an attack, or 78% of the cloud applications had a phishing incident. We see the same in Asia Pacific as well, as per Hong Kong CERT Cybersecurity um, Readiness Index. They reported that 98% of the organizations suffered cyber attack, and phishing was involved in it. Right. So globally, if you look at it, right, amidst various types of cybersecurity threats, like the data breaches, or um, the misconfigurations, or it could be the malicious, sorry, the badly written codes into an application that could lead to a vulnerability. There are so many different types of threats, but the university related research says that 78% of the threats were related to phishing alone, right? So it's really concerning, and it all leads to what we click. And so is it is important for us to um, understand and analyze before we click on anything. With this, to delve more into the phishing types, I'd like to hand over to Anna Ferreira at this point.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you to my fellow speakers. Yes, so what can we say about the key takeaways for universities? Well, in fact, as my fellow speakers were saying, phishing is everywhere. So phishing and social engineering attacks, which phishing is part of it, is one of the top 5 most common cyber attacks everywhere. We could say that a few years ago, it focused mostly on domains like critical infrastructures, like healthcare or government, and higher, let's say, risk data. But in this case, actually, is everywhere because everything is more exposed than ever. Every information is out there; it's online, and obviously, the attacks will going to be more and more sophisticated as we have more sophisticated technologies such as AI and so on. So it's not an occasional issue; it's going everywhere, and it's also in higher education. If you don't think you're being attacked, then you're not monitoring properly your infrastructure. So you need to make sure you have proper means to monitor, detect, and also recover. Uh, Usually, it would be nice to prevent, but not all can be prevented. So at least if you are paying attention, you probably can get most of them. But that's on a general thing. If you think about every individual, every human being, I mean, we've been having, interactions for many, many years without technology. And it is studied in the evidence that there are many principles of persuasion, of influence that we use in our relations, even if they are not to be actually have a negative impact on the other person or the other persons. So some of them were already told about, if you have authority, so if some email comes from our boss or from our teacher, probably you are more prone to reply or be able to actually with urgency try to reply it. Urgency is another principle. We also have liking and similarity. If you are bound to connect with someone which has the features closer to us, we probably have more trust in that. So trust is also a very subjective word, but it's very important in the relations, not only with human beings, but also through technology and with technology. There is evidence, research evidence with that. Also, some of the evidence that we have that we do research at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Porto in Portugal. We also realize that there are many factors that can influence our relations, our interactions. One of them is age, actually. Uh, Surprisingly or not, age is one of them. The type of information that we access, for example, in healthcare, since I'm from that domain, we can have higher and lower sensitive data. So that also is a factor of influence when we are trusting to click or not on an email or on information or an application that leads us to some healthcare data. For example, if we are wanted to access higher sensitive information, like from our kids or from high risk disease, probably we are more cautious than not. So every little factor is relevant in this interaction, and every interaction that we have as humans, as an individual, is different, even if it's not something. It's the time that we're doing it. So if we are at night or 2 seconds later, it's already a different interaction with different characteristics, with different, probably in the different context. So that's also very relevant. And why is this so difficult? Why we don't have already more than 90% secure solutions for phishing? Because it's about every individual decision, right? Each one of us decides to click or not. And all with these factors that I mentioned, it's very difficult to actually be able to provide solutions that are 100% effective, or at least more than 90% effective. And that's why, as the fellow speakers were saying, even if you are very expert and if you are a cybersecurity specialist, you can still click the wrong link at the wrong time. So it's very important to have proper means and frameworks to help us deal with this. And education sectors, we should be more aware than ever than that. And we have the expertise of being teachers and learners and everything. So we should be able to provide proper training whenever possible. And we can use already infrastructures or frameworks that we know they are like can constitute a base for the cybersecurity that we can implement in our institution. I'll tell you about these three, which are quite well known. So I'll talk about NIST cybersecurity framework, which is usually more focusing on and recommended in US. But this can help us, right, to understand what is the maturity of the institution in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of risk. Actually, everything that we do in terms of cybersecurity solutions should start with risk assessment, risk analysis, to try to understand what is really that we need to protect and how. And we start with people. So the most asset that we should protect first is actually the human being, and then afterwards the information and all the information that needs to be the data that we use to carry our business. In this case, in education, we already mentioned, research, outcomes, students' personal data and teachers' personal data, and so on. So that's very relevant. So NIST is one of these frameworks that can help us already to prevent, detect, and respond in a structured way to actually be able to provide this cybersecurity assessment. Then we have ISO, which is a very well-known standard, 2001. It's been out there for some time now. It really helps us, it guides us in order to provide cybersecurity management, and also focus on risk management, risk assessment, and so on, risk analysis, and provide mitigation strategies for your organization. Obviously, these frameworks are general. They don't say exactly in your context what needs to be done, but they provide a really good baseline for you to start with, so that you don't start from zero. And that's really, really useful and helpful. Can also mention the Sun Security Awareness Roadmap. It focuses also more on the human risk, how to assess human risk within the institution. We know that, again, we are all very individual and very different. In every organization, we have different types of people with different goals: students, teachers, administrative personnel, technical personnel, researchers, and so on. So all this needs to be taken into consideration when we are thinking about processing risk. What is the need? What can a person really do and learn? And this training needs to be orthogonal to everybody. It's difficult to provide training on a specific basis, but this is what we need to do. Going back to what I was saying, every individual is personal, is different, and every interaction that they do will be different at any time. So these infrastructures and these frameworks are really very relevant. And they have also within them some awareness and training that can already be used or reused or adapt, and should be adapted to your institution, to your goals, because we know that that's the idea. So NIST cybersecurity already provides an awareness education and training, which can be reused. Then we have the ISO also have some means to document what is happening. So ongoing awareness, education, and training programs, so it can be aligned with your institution security policies. And very quickly, also SANS also establishes a model where in order to measure, as I was saying, the human risk, how it can progress or not, if the behavior is being changed or not, if it's being successful. So in the end, whatever framework that we choose, we need to make sure that we can measure and monitor and control it. Otherwise, we cannot assess the impact it's having in our institution. So if we are assessing cybersecurity training and awareness of our users, we need to make sure that it's not one time or one time per year, for example. It needs to be a continuous process. It needs to make sure that we actually are producing positive effects. And if we are not, obviously we need to change something. We need to keep betting on it, investing on people, because technology in the end is to provide us with and support humans. So that's where it should go, and that's where we should be able to always stay alert and with critical thinking when interacting with technology. So now I'll pass the word to fellow speaker, Dr. Murat. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. I totally agree. Cybersecurity is not a technology issue. and we need to adopt certain frameworks, standards to ensure we have the full visibility and as well the security controls in place. I make this analogy when it comes to dealing cybersecurity to dealing the water leakage. Building higher walls, thicker walls will not prevent the problem. The water will find its way, find the leakage, and will come. So, and most of the time, this leakage is coming through the human, and we are discussing why we are clicking, and we are still clicking. And I'm not sure that we can find a way to 100% prevent it. So, the best practice is really to align with certain standards. But when it comes to the universities, it's not their individual wish to put those standards, but they need to present some compliance. Doesn't matter indeed the universities or any industry that the training piece, the human awareness piece is a fundamental component and it's part of major data privacy compliance programs. Uh, GDPR in the Europe or CCPA or other US state laws implicitly or explicitly require every organization to have such programs in place. And very specifically in UK, when it comes to the funding, when it comes to getting green light from the government support, you need to demonstrate those frameworks are already in place and compliant. Yes, human is in the center, and the truth is, we humans are the reason of many cyber attacks happening, and almost all cyber threats penetration succeed. Do so because of the human error. Well, it's not necessarily end of the world. Either ignorance or lack of information that will create that penetration for many organizations. Yes, trainings must reflect that reality. I totally agree. Training overall is very boring. You cannot expect the people to complete a couple of hours of training or force them in a room and then they pretend they learn. You need to find different ways of engaging the audience, especially as much as I don't like saying the younger generation, but there are different ways we communicate and collaborate and share information. So the traditional way of teaching, traditional way of aligning those trainings has to change and reflect the reality. And to Anna's comments, if we don't measure it, if we don't benchmarking it, how do we know is there any progress? So it doesn't matter at the end of the day the risk score that you are aggregating. That number doesn't mean anything. But give 3 months, 6 months, and compare where you are or compare with your peers. That will basically provide a little bit more right information. So, what are the takeaways? Again, all we are discussing today for the universities, for the colleges to adopt the best practices. I personally believe trainings cannot be one-off approach, exercise, initiative. It has to be a journey. And I don't believe the technology again will solve the problem. You need to put in place an awareness program, a training program in line with where the university is located in terms of the complying with the regulations locally, regionally, but as well, it has to basically provide a little bit more caveat, a little bit more adaptiveness to reflect each culture's and each university's needs. When it comes to the user behavior, Shana was absolutely right. Like we forget 70% of what we learn in 24 hours. But I will ask, what happens in the next 24 hours or a week later? Like we are bombarded with a lot of information. So instead, I was reading like in a given day that we have a regular day, we go out, we watch certain things that we are exposed 1100 and more advertisement. So imagine that we just dissect everything and understand, probably our brain will explode. So what we do as the human best do, we ignore. So that happens to the training as well. So we tend to ignore, we tend to object. So at the end of the day, user behavior or human behavior is an amazing topic. So how we can find a way to put this as a habit. So put this as a, something engaging. They will get pleasure of learning, pleasure of adapting. So that needs to be in place. And without putting the right metrics, the KPIs, how we're going to measure the behavior and how we're going to really enforce that type of learning. Yes, cyber resilience is what we are discussing, especially with the digital era we are going through. But as human beings, we are still adapting. I mean, it's a different story when we are, driving. We know that certain things will not do, and our subconscious prevents even we try to do it. But when we enter to the digital space, although we know clicking is wrong, to your example, like why I'm getting this DocuSign link, why I'm getting those, like we know it's wrong, but we still tend to click because our mind, our subconscious is still building when it comes to the cybersecurity in the digital responsiveness. But this is where we are, and in order to make it more compliant for the universities and to also prevent them from the reputational damage, from again stopping of their operation, they need to find a way to adapt those programs and put it in place. So I think this is the all the topics that we want to cover today. We have a good conversation. I sincerely thank Shahnawaz for his contribution and Dr. Ashok and Anas sharing your insights. So we are happy to help. We totally believe that it is not a one-shot, a cookie-cutter approach. It needs to be adapted. It needs to work with the universities to find the right way to do it. And there are some ways to do it, and we are happy to help. We are happy to showcase those best practices from the BeamSec and Amiseq team to really help you secure the universities, secure your campus, but more importantly, encourage all your staff, your alumni, your students to be cyber aware, and then really fade away all those malicious attacks coming to your organization, to the universities.